All right, we've been working on making high-res and low-res objects for the last week, so I wanted to explain what the purpose of this is. I'm going to do that with this head and some other tools and how we're going to use them, really. So if we look at this head, it's got high-res definition, it's got some, there's some, you've seen it before, it's got some interesting stuff in here. It's not photorealistic, it didn't go all the way down to the pores, though that's something I may do eventually. But it's got, some brow stuff going on, it's got the wrinkles and such and such. Anyway, so if we pull back out and we look at it this way, this is running 1.572 million polys, so 1.5 million polys. Way too much for a video game for one head. We haven't even got to textures yet. So what we do in video games, and what, as I told you, Pixar figured out for us years ago, is that we can use things on low-res objects like this. This is a really bad, crappy version of a 6,000 poly, so it's pretty low. I can even real quick see if I can down-res it a little bit more. I go in Geo and go into, let's say, half. Leave on adaptive, why not? We'll see what we get. We may get some tweaking on the ears and stuff. Yeah, let's not even do that. Okay, so we have this. I mean, right now it's 12,000 polys, but 12,000 polys compared to, 1.5 million is quite a bit different, but you can also see the difference. Now remember, we don't see any smoothing groups inside of here because this is ZBrush. It doesn't show smoothing, it just shows polys. So let's see. What do? We take that high-res one and we try and make it look like this. That's what you guys are doing. You're making the high-res one, you're going to put it on the low-res one and get something better looking. So if we look at that high-res, this is the same low-res, I'm sorry. If we look at this low-res inside of 3TO Max with its smoothing and stuff, it looks like this. If we look at it in a program we're going to learn soon called Substance, it looks like this. It's still just kind of creepy, and all that stuff. Well, what we do, I'm going to do it in here because it's faster, but I'll show you the process in Max. Let me actually just do that first. So if we look at this in Max, and way we used to, and this is the way we started doing normals, is that we would take the object, we would take a high-res version of that object. So if I open up the layers, and I take the high-res and I pull it out, this, you can see that the high-res is right there. So we've got the high-res on top of the low-res. So what we do is we still have that low-res selected. Hopefully, that's the high-res, there's low-res. And then we go to either push 0 or we open it up in rendering and then 0 render to texture. And what we do is we take this low-res head and we say project modifier onto it, but we're going to pick an object, and of course that's the high-res head. And then we bake it out, but there's a little bit more of a dance, you'll see. What it does is it's going to make a cage. I'm not crazy about the cage in here. I'm not crazy about all cages really, but they can be used really strongly, and the more precise you get with them. So it makes this thing, and this thing is saying this is how far it's going to check all the normals to make sure that everything is hit. But of course we see overlapping, and what we used to do is just go in here and smooth out this stuff and all that kind of craziness. But we aren't even going to do that with this one. We're going to leave it default. Actually, interestingly, and then of course it would jack our computers a little bit. But interestingly, yeah, so we do this by hand, or you can even take polygons and whatever and figure out where you want to go. I'm going to go ahead and I swear there used to be a relax thing in here. I just don't see it anymore. It's probably in here. I'm just missing it. Anyway, so after we take this, we tell it to what size we want the maps, like I've done here before. I did the high, the shadow, and the height because I don't really have anything else. And then I told it where I wanted to export it out. I picked the size, which are on these, and then I say render. And it takes a while, and it puts it to out maps for you, and it can even bake it onto the object. Then we delete our projection, and we hide our high-res, and we come back and open our material editor, and we put, and I've done it, put that material we have right here onto the object and show it. So now we've got a really good facsimile of how it works. Now, if I turn off these lights, if I unhide all the lights real quick. Actually, I'll just do it this way. Default scene lights. You can see where, oh, it's going to use those, huh? Okay. You can see where some of the stuff got broken, like up in here. It's overlapping. It's looking weird. We don't know what's going on. We can tell it was probably from that cage, and if I tweaked the cage, probably could have got better. But generally, and then this ear probably could have taken a little bit more time to make it right. Now, the other thing I want to point out is the unwrap on this is awful. Really, really awful. So some of the stuff that's happening is going to be unwrap related, but it's gotten a lot better in Max than it used to be. So, and I'll show you what the unwrap looks like in a second. But I'm going to do this live inside of Substance and show you what it looks like. And then there's another program that you can do it live, and that's pretty fast too. But we'll just use Substance for now, Substance Painter. Say bake mesh. We're going to pick that high res. We're going to go 2048 for the same thing. And we're going to say bake. And there's our normal. And there's my computer about to take off. And launching into space. Okay. So, actually open that. It made all these maps. It baked all those maps for me, which is kind of what Max does, but it has some limitations. And if we look at it, it now looks like a 3D object. And that's what we're kind of trying to do. But if you really took a closer look at it, you could see that like the eyes are exactly the same. There's no geometry. This doesn't break the geometry. This just fakes it. Okay, and it's an amazing job faking it too. So that's what normal maps are for, and that's why we're making the high and low res ones. If we look at this example here, you can see what it did is they have these actual geometry pieces, and then you have the normal map versions of them. It works as the lower they are, the closer they are to the surface, but it works less because it never changes the geometry. It's just showing you the mapping on the geometry. So your final crates will have that kind of stuff. So if I come in here and say File, Recent File, and we look at Open. If we look at this crate, we will see this is our low-res crate, and there's some definite problems and things we have to deal with, but this is a low-res crate with a high-res texture built on it, and all that detail and stuff is kind of working, but it's not perfect, and we'll figure that out before when we get to the baking. Anyway, that's all. I wanted to show you how to do that before we moved on to making your high-res a little bit more high-res, and we'll talk to you later.